Happy Monday. Nice to see you guys. Let me make sure we got all the things going and then start seated. Just a nice comfy seat, something that feels like you have space to breathe, to stabilize, to expand from. I'll just settle in here. Let the Mondays kind of roll off the body. Think about finding the vertical stack within the spine that is supportive of you. And then once you get the physicality set in, start to find a breath that is supportive of you. Or maybe nourishing you. And then let your awareness drift to each half of the breath. Thinking about that delineation point between the inhale and the exhale. And noticing if one side of the breath feels easier, feels longer, feels shorter. And then start to let your awareness go towards equalizing the sides of the breath if there's any imbalance there. So that the duration mirrors on the inhale and the exhale, so that the intensity mirrors on the inhale and exhale, so that the ease mirrors on the inhale and the exhale. And let's just give ourselves like 45 more seconds here, just feeling that equivalency or finding that equivalency. And when it feels appropriate, we'll let the eyes open if they are closed. Let's take the hands together, interlacing the fingers, and then just pushing the palms away from us. I want to make sure that's acceptable for the shoulder. And then release your right hand and keep that left hand out in front of you. And let's take the right hand and place that over the top and just start to rotate the left hand so that you bring that palm so that it faces up towards the ceiling. Looking to get into this posterior musculature, kind of lateral musculature of the forearm. And wrapping up into that elbow capsule here. And then we'll release the hands back to heart center interlacing and bring the hands to that midpoint. Note how the shoulders respond to that intensity. And then let's push the palms away. We'll keep the right hand where it is. Let the left hand flop and interlace on top, and then give yourself that rotation. I went the wrong way there. You're going palm up. And again, just trying to feel what really is the posterior, what can feel kind of lateral as we rotate, and then all the way up from that forearm into the elbow capsule. And then when you feel balanced, we'll relax and come back to heart center. Let the shoulders sit once again. And then let's transition hands and knees tabletop. That's a really nice kind of benefit of the arm's ability to manipulate. Right? You think about if we wanted to access that calf tissue, we don't have that rotational capacity to do that. So nice little asset is you sit here and you feel the forearms kind of energize here. They may feel a little jello-like. Let's keep that awareness as we curl our toes, lift our seat, and roll back towards down dog so that you can feel the energy in the forearm. And if there's some instability around the elbow, lock in with a little bit of internal squeeze so that you create some more stability. Make sure that you're not hyperextending the elbows here, especially if you have additional mobility. So maybe even the subtlest bend to the elbows because we've created more space there. And then we'll come down to hands and knees. Tabletop, flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. And now you can let the shoulders relax, let the arms relax, try to get some blood flow, some rejuvenation there. Nice, easy, fluid inhale, exhale. Hip compression, gravitational force load on the top of the body. Try to relax against that gravitational push or into that gravitational push. And we'll give ourselves about 10 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll find our way back to tabletop. From tabletop, curl your toes underneath you so you load the legs here. And then with the legs loaded, exhale, round the middle of the back. Push down into the finger mounds. You can even lift the heels of the hands if that feels accessible to you. And really try to bow out across the shoulder girdle so that you're pushing into that top space. And then relax, let the belly drop, let the chin lift. Now try to relax across the shoulder girdle so that the sternum can fall forward as far as is possible, getting that belly accentuation. And then we'll come back to neutral, curl our toes, lift our seat, and find down dog. Hopefully we've kind of restabilized around the elbow. So as you're pressing back, think about how you can use that forearm space to drive length. And then we'll walk our way forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Drift the awareness to the sacrum. Let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Finding your version of mountain, thinking about that weight distribution, that activation in the feet and the arches. Hands come together at heart center. Let's interlace those fingers once again, and then give yourself like a clasp down. So the fingers are going to actively press down. Pretty decent amount of pressure there, maybe like 20%. So it's a pretty generous squeeze there. And then keep that finger squeeze as you slide the left foot back. Balance into that shape and push the arms forward. Likely, we're going to have some shoulder tension from all that finger squeeze. You can feel all the stability there. Pull the humerus back and then lift the arms up and overhead, trying to keep that squeeze. Then we'll relax the squeeze, drop the hands to heart center, and return to the front of the mat. Note how the glutes respond to that, re-normalizing the top of the mat. Once again, interlace the fingers, pressure down so that we squeeze. You may even be able to see some of the blood flow change as you do so. Second foot, right foot slides straight back. We land in that lunge space. Energize forward, keeping that squeeze turned on. Retract those humeral heads. We'll lift the arms overhead. Finger squeeze stays with us. Relax, drop the hands to heart center. And we'll turn to the front of the mat. Settle the weight distribution. Think about how we can be strong and anchored there. And then we'll sink the seat back into chair. And then drop the hands so that they run the same direction or parallel to the torso. And then bring the torso just a little bit further forward. Arms will respond to that. Fingers are splayed out wide here. Trying to get the glutes to activate. And then just release the hands down. There should be some knee bend, or there should be some knee bend. And then drop the head. Push back all the way through the hamstrings and get that half lift. And then exhale back into your fold. And as you're finding your way back into the fold, think about the foot activation and how you can bring those arches more and more into the shape. Then let's plant our hands. We'll walk our way back into plank. Establishing that really strong plank stability. Think about the glute squeeze, the core squeeze, and then maintain that as you lower yourself to your belly. Flipping the tops of the feet. Let's interlace the fingers kind of directly. Let's take a sphinx to get this set up. So elbows are bent at 90 degrees. Whenever I wear dark, we just can't see, but the elbows are bent at 90 degrees. Fingers interlace. So we have that little setup where the elbows are at shoulder width and the hands are in that midline. And then lower your forehead down onto the hands. Keep the quads engaged so the kneecaps are lifted. And then note how the shoulders want to round up and over the top of the shoulder girdle. Pull the shoulders back and down. And then with a lot of musculature engagement, with a lot of awareness, try to find your way back to the breath we started class with. That balanced inhale and exhale, an equivalent amount of energy on the inhale and the exhale, an equivalent duration on the inhale and the exhale, without losing any of the engagement or any of the positioning awareness. And we'll relax and let the hands stack, and we can find our way down to that hand stack, a little crocodile. And then a little easy. Fluid breath once again. Just really consciously sipping the air. And we'll give ourselves just about 20 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll slide our hands back underneath our shoulders. Press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. Reestablish that foundational tabletop shape. Think about the elbow shoulder stack. Think about how you're using the fingers, the finger mounds, and that activation. And then send your left leg straight back and behind you. Toes point straight down here, quads active. Let's extend our right arm straight forward. As we do so, we want to feel some of that bilateral pull across the anterior. So really think about energizing in both directions. And then bring your right elbow to your left knee, or bring your left knee to your right elbow, compressing to that midpoint. And think about rounding into the middle of the shape once again. Shoulder girdle and mid back. And then re-extend. Toes point straight down, that big, long activation here. And then the right hand comes down, left knee comes down, toes curl, roll back into down dog. There may be some asymmetry at the shoulder joints. Think about balancing the weight, not running away from the soft side, but really energizing into it. And then we'll relax down to hands and knees tabletop. Remember that we're not all in the heels of the hands. The finger mounds and fingerprints are actively holding us. Then the right leg extends straight back, right toes point straight down. Left arm extends forward. Again, feeling that bilateral anterior expansion. And then elbow to knee compression and rounding into the middle of the back. And then re-extend. Toes active. Space in both directions. Refine tabletop. Curl your toes, lift your seat, and roll into down dog. Energy across the shoulder girdle. Think about that mid-back section. What you can do to energize by shifting the weight across the finger mounds from the pinky edge to the index finger edge and stabilizing and neutralizing that distribution of energy across the shoulder girdle. And then we'll step or float to the front of the mat. Inhaling into half lift. Exhaling back into fold. Remember to let the head go completely. Remember to feel the body melt over that hip hinge. Drift your awareness to your sacrum, and let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming into our mountain. Hands coming together, heart center. Relaxing that shoulder girdle space, thinking about the stability in the top shape, where we need to engage to maintain our equivalent weight distribution. And then let's slide our left foot straight back and into lunge. Land here, ground your left heel, roll to 2. Blossom into that space. Think about that lateral edge energy and building the strength. Let's bring our hands together at heart center. Interlace the fingers, squeeze the knuckles down, and then pull the elbows back, like you're trying to peel the elbows back towards the space behind you. Note how that impacts the medial line. Blossom back into 2. Slide back into your right hamstring. So you have triangle leg alignment. And then just start to reach forward. So we're energizing that triangle line, but we're not dropping into the triangle shape. We're just going straight forward, trying to craft as much distance as possible here. And then we'll rebend the front knee, hands come back to heart center. Think about peeling open into that medial space, spin the left heel up. Extend a crescent. Drive the energy back into that back leg. Load that back quad, load that back heel, and then drop the hands and return to the front of the mat. Relax, breathe, be fluid here. When it feels appropriate, we'll take this to side 2. Right foot slides straight back. We land and stabilize. Keep those hands at heart center. We'll ground our right heel, interlace the fingers and squeeze down, locking in that shape, then squeezing the elbows back. It's just the elbows. It's not stomach forward. It's just the elbows. Then blossom into two. Use that extra space you've created with that tack down of the shoulders. Peel open nice and wide. Think about crafting that expansiveness. And then we slide back into the left hamstring. We activate that space, and then we start to energize forward. It's really the same triangle energy. We're just crafting the shape differently. But we are accessing our hamstring musculature here. And then we'll come back up, hands come together at heart center once again. Peel open, craft that space. Right heel spins up. Drive back into the back leg. We want to be loaded in those legs so we are rock solid here. Sweep the arms, fully express crescent, drive into that back leg even further. Drop the hands to heart center. And we'll return to the front of the mat. Breath as you restabilize. Sweep the arms up and overhead and then exhale through forward fold. Think about that hamstring musculature as you release here. Plant your hands. We'll walk our way back into down dog. Drive that energy up and into the hips. Think about long lines of energy from the finger mounds to that tailbone space. And then let's shift forward to plank. Squeeze into that plank space. Good, strong core engagement. Bend the knees to bear. So we have that nice little inch or two, and then push back into down dog. Much harder to get the depth in down dog here. There's also this tendency in down dog for us to think about creating more distance by walking our hands back. It's not really creating more distance, right? So think about driving up and into the hips. And then come down to hands and knees. Tabletop, flip the tops of the feet, and sink back into child's pose. This should be a pretty deep child's pose. We've opened up that posterior chain nicely. We've played a lot with our shoulder and back musculature. The hip hinge should be relatively free in comparison to the first time we were here. So settle deeply. And then really engage with gravity. And that sounds silly for a multitude of reasons, right? We don't really think about gravity, not consciously, not usually. And yet it is a force of energy that we are constantly working against in many ways. And yet, if we position our body appropriately, we can either alleviate the pressures of gravity or the sensation of the pressures of gravity, or we can utilize gravity. Here, we're truly utilizing gravity to help expand our body's capacity. Let's give ourselves about 15 more seconds just to work in tandem with gravity.
And then when it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees, tabletop. From tabletop, curl your toes, lift your seat, find your way back into down dog. Drive that depth all the way back. Think about the hips elevating. We'll step or float to the front of the mat. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Shift your awareness to your sacrum and let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming into our top space, letting our hands come together at heart center, sliding our left foot straight back into lunge. Grounding the left heel and rolling open into warrior two. From warrior two, sliding back into triangle, we'll head to a more traditional alignment this time. Driving into that depth and then rolling that top shoulder, our left shoulder back for additional space. Bend your front knee, just a little side angle, draw yourself back up into warrior two with hands at heart center. All right. So we should have a lot of space around the hips, a lot of space in the hamstrings. Bring the fingerprint to fingerprint energy right at midline, and we are going to press actively, lift the elbows up to a relative space where they're parallel with the floor, and then press actively like you're trying to squish a wad of paper. We don't need to squish a bug in there. Squish a wad of paper in between our hands. And again, we're thinking about finger mounds, fingerprints, not just the heels of the hands. So we want the whole hands to be active, and we're really pushing here in a way where it's like a fight on which side is going to win. And then allow the front arm to win so that you push toward that back straight leg. And then allow that to reverse like you're pushing forward to the front. And then we'll come back to neutral and just blossom into that shoulder space. A lot of shoulder space. Sink into the hips as well. Left heel spins up. We're into crescent. We'll drop the hands to heart center and return to the front of the mat. As you get to the front of the mat, the shoulders should feel wide open, right? Really remember that the glutes can engage so that we don't round forward. We find that glute engagement. We're active and lifted. And then we'll take this to side two. Right foot slides straight back. We land, we ground, we roll into two. Slide back into your left hamstring. We're headed into triangle, a more traditional alignment. Big, deep opening space here. Really thinking about the way in which we expand. That top shoulder peeling and opening you up. Then we'll bend the front knee, side angle, draw ourselves into two, bring our hands together at heart center. Crafting the space and then pressurizing those hands together. Elbows up, energy really strongly meeting one another. That medial line is this pressure point. And then we'll allow that front arm to win. We push towards that back leg. And then we allow that back arm to win. We push towards that front shoulder. And we come back to neutral, blossom into two. Shoulders should is the wrong word. Shoulders may feel some fatigue here. Right heel spins up. We're into crescent. Find that depth. The shoulder girdle is allowing this hip depth. And then hands drop. And we step to the front of the mat. Sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale through fold. Ideally, we find a lot of space here. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands. We'll walk our way back into down dog. Okay, so a little challenge here with some potential shoulder fatigue. We'll bend the knees, come down to bear. Lift the seat and find down dog. Shift the weight forward to plank. Reestablish that plank stability. Bend the knees into bear. And then push the seat back to the heels for baby bear. Knees stay elevated. Shift all the way forward to plank. Lower yourself to your belly. Flip the tops of the feet. Let's once again do that Sphinx setup where we interlace the fingers and we can slide the forehead down on those stacked is the wrong word, on those interlaced fingers. Little grip and squeeze here, rolling the shoulder blades down towards the glutes. Quads are active, kneecaps are lifted. We're strong in the legs. Hold this for 15 more seconds. Remember, your breath is fluid and easy. And when it feels appropriate, hand stack. Forehead releases and relaxes. And you have the opportunity to come to ease. There are these two neighbors. They have a habit of talking to one another over the fence. While they're out in their yards doing their yard work on the weekends, they talk about all kinds of things. But as of late, they've been talking about this national political scene. There are these two candidates running, and they both have likes of different candidates. And so it gives them a lot to discuss in terms of what is being offered, what is being said. We'll give ourselves just about 20 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate for you, hands slide underneath the shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, let's curl the toes underneath us. And then all we're going to do is lift straight up into plank. From plank, we'll lift our left foot off the ground and send that back into three-legged dog. Step the left foot forward into a lunge. Sweep your arms up into this crescent. Lift the gaze if that feels accessible to you. Sweep the hands back down to the mat. We're going to slide the left foot back into that little floating space in plank. And then find three-legged dog again. Left knee to left elbow. And then straight back into plank. Seat to down dog. Shift your weight forward to plank. Right foot finds that lift. Right foot extends straight back into three-legged dog. We'll step that right foot forward into lunge. Sweep yourself up into crescent. Drop the hands down on the mat. Right foot slides back, it floats, and then it is three-legged dog to the elbow, the plank, to down dog. And we'll walk our way forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Little opportunity to check in on the rate of respiration, check in on the heart rate. See what you can do to down-regulate both of those. We'll give ourselves Just another breath in this fold. And then when you're right, awareness drifts to your sacrum. We'll roll or sweep our way up into mountain. Hands come together at heart center. With that balance between the left and right foot, the activation in the arches, let's sink our way back into chair. From chair, from the stability of chair, thinking about keeping as much balance as possible in the legs that slide our left foot straight back into lunge. Fully expressed crescent. Roll to warrior two. Take the right forearm to the right thigh, and then extend your left arm straight forward or straight forward-ish. And then just roll open. We'll slow things down a little bit. Sometimes I just get moving. And then let's come back up into warrior two. Open, blossom, expand. Left heel spins up, crescent. We'll drop the hands to heart center and return to the front of the mat. Sink the seat back into chair. Good, strong engagement in the quads. Right foot slides back into lunge. Roll open into two. Bend that front forearm. We're coming into side angle. Right arm is extending roughly forward-ish. Palm is down here. Still thinking about the stacking of the shoulders, trying to find that lock-in space. And then we'll come up into two. Spin the back heel up into crescent. Drop the hands to heart center. Return to the front of the mat. Sink the seat back into chair. Get all the way into what feels like your maximum depth. Then interlace your fingers and squeeze. That lock provides additional stability. Use that for extra depth. And then we'll rise, sweep the arms up and overhead. And exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Settle, land. Plant your hands. We'll walk our way back into down dog. Get all the way back into your down dog depth. Think about that lift, that expansion. Think about energy from the finger mounds, through the forearms, through the shoulders, down the spinal column, into the glutes. And then come down to hands and knees tabletop. And we'll sink back into child's pose. So do the last child's pose of class here. So any last tweaks or adjustments that you want to get out of this shape, let's do. We'll give ourselves just about 30 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. Extend our legs straight out in front of us. Or staff. And then from staff,
vertical, find your way forward into a little seated forward fold. We won't be here super long, just enough to check in and reset. And when it feels appropriate, we'll bring our back into seat. And then we are lowering onto our backs for some well-deserved appreciation. Particularly if you were in class yesterday, the shoulder girdle may feel pretty targeted. So find yourself a shape where the shoulders feel like they can rest. If cactus does not allow your arms to rest, don't be there. Let the arms fall to a place where you can be relaxed here. And let's just appreciate what we've done thus far. Find that balanced inhale and exhale that we developed at the start of class. And then let's, with a conscious focus on that balanced inhale and exhale, bring our knees into a bent position, kneecaps point towards the ceiling. And we'll let the knees sway side to side. Just this dynamic movement, this dynamic exploration of our body, noting if there are points of catch, of hitch. And then eventually let's let the knees fall to one side or the other, whatever side feels most appropriate, most beneficial. And we'll just settle there for a little static hold. And so on one side of the fence, there's this woman who's decided to put her vote behind this very unassuming politician. And on the other side, this man is very enthusiastically supporting a much more boisterous, much more promiseful
much more engaging politician. And the two talk some about the kind of representations, but they mostly focus on the promises being made, the statements being made. And so on one side of the fence, this man is talking about all these wonderful things that his potential future leader is going to do for both of them. And on the other side, this woman is kind of listening to the things she's being told, maybe not necessarily believing that all of these things are possible. But they mostly agree that they want the same things or many similar things. When it feels appropriate for you, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. Let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide. Until one day, one weekend, they meet in the garden. The man comes over and he's very excited because his politician has made a promise. They're both roughly an equivalent age. And he says, "Did you hear what this politician's going to do if they're elected?" I'm from the other side of the fence. She says, "No, I haven't had a lot of time to check in this week. It's been a busy week at work." He says, "Well, we're going to he's promised to install policies that will make things the way they were." And she hears this and she pauses and she catches. She starts thinking about what's being said. And she pipes back over the fence, that's not possible. Things can never return to how they've been before. And he blows it off. He's like, you don't know what you're talking about. And she says, "No, let's just think about this. Like, go in your phone right now and pull up a picture, any picture." And she's like, "A picture of what?" She says, "It doesn't matter. Bring up a picture of you." And he pulls up a picture. And she says, "Is that exactly how you look right now?" And for your next inhale, we'll bring our knees together. And then we'll let the knees fall over to the second side. And he looks at the picture, and in the picture, he's clean shaven. And now he has this big beard. And he says, "Well, no, because I have a beard now, and I didn't in the picture." And she says, "Well, sure, you have a beard, but also time has passed. You'll never be the person you are in that photo again. It is an impossibility." And the two of them start to discuss this. And she starts to bring up the fact that she thinks some of the other things that this favored politician is offering are not possible or are outright dishonest. And he keeps blowing her off, saying, "No, no, no, that's not true. He says all these wonderful things." And she says, "Well, you know what? Next week, why don't we get together? Instead of doing yard work, we'll sit down and we'll have a cup of coffee. And we can review the statements that are being made against the reality of the lives we're living." And he very excitedly agrees. He says, "That'll be wonderful." And so the next weekend, that's exactly what they do. They get together over a cup of coffee. They have a bunch of statements that have been made about the economy and about employment, about the position in the world and the healthcare system. And they sit down and they review these statements versus the data. when you're right, when you're ready, when you're balanced. We'll bring the knees back to neutral. We'll ask ourselves if there's anything that we might want, need, or benefit from prior to Shavasana. And if there is, we'll offer that to ourselves now. And if we have everything that we want, if we have everything that we could possibly need, we'll find our way into some stillness.
And so the next week when they sit down, they start reviewing statements made by this very boisterous politician against facts. And slowly, this woman starts to show her neighbor these clear delineations between the statements being made and the reality that they're both living in. And as the weeks continue to go on and on, this delineation starts to create a cognitive dissonance in this man's brain. And there's one day where it finally just clicks, it snaps. And she can see that it is a very hard thing for this man to take on. This promise of all these things he's wanted being said and then not attaching to reality the way he had expected. And she puts her hand on his shoulder and she says, beliefs are incredibly powerful things. They can guide us, they can comfort us, they can inspire us. But when they're not backed by, when they blind us to reality, they can only lead us astray. And they both sit back, sipping their coffee. We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. To our wrists and our ankles, shoulders, elbows, hips, knees, neck, head, jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of our body will move, and we'll utilize that movement to transition from the shapes we are in, finding our way into a seat. Seat is face, spine is tall, breath is fluid, eyes close. And with our next inhale, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that only by grounding our beliefs in truth can we build a sustainable future? And see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you. Love the heck out of you. I will be back next Sunday to recharge, and we'll do this thing again next Monday. Love the heck out of you. Have a beautiful week. See you soon. Mwah!